Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by. My name's Ben Scogan with ProStar, and I'm here to talk about why PointMan Enterprise is a better utility system for DOTs. The agenda today will be talking about common issues that DOTs face, as well as the value of PointMan Enterprise. We'll talk about where PointMan Enterprise lives as far as being a GIS system or not. And then we'll talk about line strikes and how we can avoid them using better contractor management. We'll talk about the environmental and the permitting side of things. We'll talk about barriers to acquiring utility as-built data, as well as some ROI that we've currently seen in other states. We'll talk about procurement, and then we'll cap it off lastly with implementation and how to move forward. So common DOT issues. SUE projects are just very expensive and time consuming because we don't have good records to start from as a DOT. These surveys are repeated due to not having a permanent record, most importantly, a permanent record that can be updated. Data gets locked down because of this into the CAD environment. It never goes to Esri, and there's a big disconnect between the GIS department's engineering and the survey data itself. And then, because of this leads into this concept of, SUE companies that work on the DOT projects and the right-of-ways have to go out and find records before they're able to find those assets in the field. And this equates to more time, effort, money, and equipment that's required. And this is exactly what leads to SUE projects being more expensive. This data, even once it's found in the field, can't be easily repurposed, meaning it gets stuck in CAD, or it gets stuck in survey, or it gets stuck in engineering or GIS. It just gets compartmentalized. And because this data can't be shared, there starts to be issues with less accurate data staying less accurate and not being able to be updated across those systems. The SUE costs stay high and line strikes continue to happen. At least that's what we've seen so far in the industry. ProStar is out to solve this problem. So we bring in the value of PointMan Enterprise. This is a real-time connection between those three GIS, surveying, and engineering disciplines. So what that means is you can start the project with good data from survey, and you can update your locations, your records, all of your information, and repurpose those throughout the life of the project. Where PointMan Enterprise really shines is at the beginning of the project, during the field sketch stage, during the initial survey, during the locate of the utilities, during the records research. This is really where you start with good data, and where you from there go and repurpose that data across the excavator, the project manager, the surveyor, the engineer. And this is just one more piece of evidence that the surveyor and the engineer can use to then determine a quality level for that data. PointMan does not determine quality levels, but it is the initial subsurface utility mapping portion of that investigation that assists with the SUE investigation. These SUE costs go down because you're actually starting with good data that you're then using, not only using across the rest of the project, but everybody on the project is on the same page as soon as that data is collected because of the nature of PointMan. It's a cloud and mobile system that's connected in real time. And so data that's collected in the field is seen by other members in the field automatically, or instantly, if you will. And so are the crews in the office. The people in the office are able to see this in real-time QA/QC, this utility data. What this means is that as you start the project with good data and move on throughout the project and reuse it, by the end of the project, your less accurate data that you started with, maybe previous records, you start to build this accurate database with a 3D component. It's very important. A lot of times we're 2D on our data, or it's sketched, or it's drawn manually. And this better data also equates to less utility strikes. There's several case studies done across different states on where PointMan has reduced dramatically the amount of line strikes on these projects. You're also able to justify paying for the system just due to your cost savings. You're able to pay for your equipment. You're able to justify it based on less utility strikes, and we'll go into that here more in a little bit. So where does PointMan live? PointMan is not just a traditional GIS. It is the high accuracy SUE addition to an existing GIS. but it also has the subsurface utility mapping, or SUM, portion to it as well out in the field. It's patented and designed for SU and for SUM, meaning you're able to pair your pipe locator and your GPS at the same time, and you're able to collect depths on buried utilities. You're able to precisely map where these utilities are, and then everyone again has that real-time view of that. It combines the GIS and survey data. It's more than just a hybrid between the two. We specialize in bringing those two together. It has a 3D component that you can rely on. We deal in 3D assets. The 2D is just not as useful, and it can't be used with things like engineering and design. But PointMan data can be used for engineering and design, like I mentioned, as another piece of evidence in that investigation. PointMan has a very low, short learning curve. It's very easy to train. I've been training PointMan in the field for 4 years now plus, and I can usually get crews up and running comfortable by lunch. We work with your IT team. The PointMan system is easy to implement because it's cloud. There's not an on-premise system. We have all of our IT security concerns that we can address on how we're mitigating all of those. This is a brand new platform, this cloud platform on Amazon Web Services, which uses the latest and greatest security protocols. So that's really where this lives, is the high accuracy SU addition to an existing GIS. What I normally tell people is don't get rid of your Esri, don't get rid of your Bentley, just connect it to PointMan and stream that data from your legacy system out into the field, where your users can then make updates to it in a real-time way with their existing hardware. So avoiding line strikes, this is one of those ROIs that really stands out. If you're able to avoid even one line strike on some high-profile utilities, it's a huge game changer. But how do you do that in PointMan? So you need office control, you need field awareness, and you need efficiency and production gains to be seen. So really, PointMan Pro has a brand new permissioning system, where, as you can see on the right, you have all of your layers, your permits, your data, your forms, everything that you imported can be given permissions for anybody in the field to use or not use, depending on their permission level. So there's all of that, and then you also have the live view of the data collection that's being done. So you can real-time QA/QC, make sure that this data is coming in the way it should. For the field users, they're able to have better situational awareness because you can import existing as-builts to compare against in the field. You can stream multiple systems of record. If you have Esri, CAD, Bentley, you can stream all of that data into the system. And then as far as efficiency and production gains, your end result, if you will, is highly accurate subsurface utility mapping data. You can easily verify unknown or mismarked utility locates, and you can stake out against those and identify the differences there. It complements current and future SU investigations, and it also, the subsurface utility mapping provides that better level of evidence on the project. As far as environmental, good utility data better equips teams during the environmental assessment. You're able to evaluate existing utilities during the NEPA process. You're able to identify impacts the utilities might have on selecting a particular design, whether utilities need to be relocated or not. You'll have a good base map of your existing utility records on the project limits. You'll be able to identify potential conflicts and fatal flaws much more quickly. And this will also assist with the planning of possible utility relocation projects within that project, which can also save a ton of time and money in that decision process. As far as permitting goes, this is one of the biggest ones. This is one of the biggest value adds that PointMan brings. You do not have to change your permitting system. There are other systems out there that force you into their permitting system. You do not have to do that in PointMan Pro. Leverage your existing permitting system, and again, we can just connect to it. A lot of DOTs use Salesforce, not a problem for ProStar and PointMan Enterprise. You can pull permits into the system when they're created in Salesforce, and or you can push back and update those from PointMan into Salesforce or any other system that has an API to it. Many DOTs have electronic permitting systems, but some are paper. PointMan works with everybody. So we can streamline that process and you can keep your legacy permitting system. So there's several barriers to acquiring utility as-built data, and 3 of them I want to identify from a case study that was done among 5 different DOTs. Proprietary information concerns. This is not just for the DOT, but also for the vendors and utility owners in the right-of-way that have assets. They want to make sure that their proprietary information is secure and confidential. PointMan maintains its SOC 2 Type 2 compliance every year, which means the data is very secure. The PointMan also implements Amazon Secure Login Standards. This is a brand new cloud that has all the latest and greatest in secure login credentialing. And then per layer permissioning ensures that only the right people see the right data. So you can make sure someone sees a certain layer set and data set but doesn't see anything else. Very good for contractors, utility owners, and the like. As far as resource concerns, as I mentioned, very quick to train this. PointMan allows field installation staff to collect reasonable and useful levels of accuracy with very minimal training. The purchase of this type of equipment is also much more reasonable. There's several options out there. We've partnered with large companies such as Trimble to make sure that you can use your existing equipment, but also the latest and greatest coming out of Trimble. And having that geospatially accurate utility data dramatically outweighs the costs, and we'll go into that more in the ROI section. As far as Homeland Security Act, the sharing of the location records is not an infringement on this act from the study that was done with those 5 DOTs, but waivers can be put in place to protect this data from being shared publicly. However, many facilities already have their locations publicly available to some level of minimal accuracy. So you can be rest assured that we've done this investigation, these case studies, and either PointMan Pro or PointMan Enterprise really does meet these requirements. So the ROI, we'll look at Colorado, and if there's more questions, you can reach out to folks at Colorado and get some more questions answered. In 2019 and 2020, there were several projects throughout the state that saved millions of dollars by using PointMan Enterprise. All the way from the planning stage to the construction stage, they found lower construction bid contingencies that resulted in better bids up front, decreased costs on the project, less delays to construction and the traveling public, less change orders during construction, increased cost savings in other areas due to having better data to start with, decrease in design delays and redesign delays. These designers were able to move forward without running into many issues in the future, and then decreased amount of safety issues and injuries. Really, this bottom quote says it all. If you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over or do it again? And so, what we talked about on the previous slide, and I'll just jump back to that real quick, having geospatially accurate utility as-built data dramatically outweighs the costs of starting on the cheap. As far as procurement, there are several challenges. Trying to purchase a pilot or a SaaS software can be a challenge. We understand that money is allocated about a year in advance, and trying to find money to fund something else can also be a challenge. In Colorado's case, or in several other DOTs, a good scope of work in an RFP can go a long way to help you out with that. Options, federal grants, STIC, EDC 6 for digital as-builts are available to help pay for the system. And you can identify also internal state funding opportunities for purchasing digital as-built software, which is what ProStar is. The bottom line is, though, what is the business need at your agency, and how can the agency benefit from procuring software for those programs? Is this something you need, and how can you benefit from them? Would be a great question to ask internally. So the path forward, there's always good ideas, but we're not really sure how to implement it. PointMan Enterprise has a better process for the collection of geospatial locations for utility permits and relocation projects. PointMan can enhance the DOT's approach to collecting utility as-built information, including the 3-dimensional accuracy and getting those elevations in there. If your DOT is currently collecting as-built in CAD or PDF format, we can ingest that information in a useful way. PointMan also ensures that accuracy is achieved for the utility as-built digital plans. Historically, utility companies have had inaccurate utility records, but with PointMan, both utility companies and agencies will have the ability to share in the collection of high-accuracy 3-dimensional positions for their utilities. And this will also enable them to focus on damage prevention best practices because of those better records. If there's any questions, I know we breezed through this very quickly. Stop by the ProStar booth, and we'd be happy to have discussion or schedule an in-depth meeting at your convenience. My name is Ben Scogan. I'm the PointMan product manager. My name and email is here, as well as Jess Lyman is our senior VP of sales. We would also be happy to redirect you to our hardware partners, as well as our DOT contacts for additional information. Thanks, everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you.